They were considered as a generational talent. The African Cup of Nations was destined for their hands and the first trophy cabinet. World Cup qualification was only a matter of brushing aside a couple of games against Morocco and Senegal. However, on the 27th of April, the Zambia National Football Team crashed, killing 18 team players, 2 national coaches, and the nation's hope of footballing glory. It was one of the most tragic moments in Zambia's short history. Hi, and welcome to another episode of the Njinjila Investigative Channel. To support us, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. It will be our pleasure to keep you engaged and informed at all times. In this episode, we uncover and unfold the events that led to the crash and loss of the Zambia National Football Team on April 27, 1990. The plane that was carrying the national team on the fateful night was a military plane known as de Havilland Canada 5D Buffalo, also known as DHC 5D Buffalo, twin turboprop with registration AF319. The plane had entered air service in the year 1975, and this type of aircraft was famed for its short takeoff and landing abilities, also known as STOL. 122 versions of the DHC 5D Buffalo planes were manufactured between the years 1965 and 1986 by the Canadian plane manufacturer de Havilland Canada. In 1976, Zambia procured 7 DHC 5D Buffaloes for its Air Force. These planes would suffer 3 separate accidents under the hands of the Zambia Air Force. The first accident happened on 25th July 1982, killing the 3 crew members that were on board. The second crash happened on 17th February 1990, when the plane crashed on an approach landing to Lusaka Airport after taking off from Bala, killing all the 29 occupants. The third and final crash of a DHC 5D Buffalo by the Zambia Air Force was a fateful crash on April 27, 1993, when the national team perished. At the end of Kenneth Kaunda's reign as the first Republican president, Zambia's economy was seriously struggling. Following a change in government in 1991, the privatization of national assets and mines did not improve the economy to desired levels. As a result, travel for away games by the national team became exorbitant for a struggling country. The Football Association of Zambia lacked the funding to charter planes or pay for seats on commercial passenger aircrafts. The Zambian government and Football Federation only had one option left: to borrow military planes from the Zambia Air Force to ferry players for away games. A struggling economy was not the only reason why the Zambia Football Federation was lacking funds. Corruption had a role to play as well. In August 1992, the chairperson of the Football Federation, Jabez Zulu, and his associate, Wilfred Monani, were suspended after revenues generated on a tour of South Korea went missing. It became apparent that personnel in the Football Federation were pocketing funds meant to maintain its solvency. Prior to the use of the DHC 5D Buffalo AF319 on the fateful night, the Football Federation had borrowed other military planes and DHC 5D Buffaloes. Before the crash, testimony from Johnson Walia, a star striker who would fortunately miss the 1993 fateful crash, revealed that flights on the Buffalo planes were anything but safe. He said that during the flights, the players were often strapped with life jackets to keep them afloat in the event that the plane would go down. The players were assured that the plane would float if they ever crashed into the ocean or water. It seems that there was a general understanding amongst the flight crew and passengers that on any of their flights, the military planes carrying them would one day crash. Kalusha Walia, another of the players to not have traveled with the team on the fateful night, revealed that the team players often joked about how the plane would eventually kill them one day. Little did they know that their observations were a premonition of things to come. Journalist Beauty Lupia, when conducting interviews with the players, also noticed how the Buffalo planes struggled to gain altitude during takeoffs. Her morbid comments over the aircraft were brushed off by some of the players. On the auspicious day of April 27, 1993, the Zambia Air Force organized the flight plane for the football team. The Buffalo, with registration AF319, that was designated to fly the national team, had been out of service for about 5 months, between November 1992 and April 22, 1993. To establish its airworthiness, test flights were conducted on 22nd and 26th of April 1993. These tests reviewed a number of glaring issues. The engine and gearbox oil filters were found to be defective with traces of carbon particles. There was loose wiring and crucial cables were disconnected. There were signs of overheating in the engine. Carbon particles are known to absorb and retain heat, which can lead to engine lock and failure. This could have been the reason for the overheating that was noted by the technical checks. Despite these findings, the plane was cleared for a trip to Senegal on the 27th of April 1993. It is not certain whether the same plane had just flown the team back from Mauritius for an AFCON qualifying game against Mauritius where the team was victorious the previous day. However, what is clear is that the pilots that flew the team from Mauritius were the same that were tasked to fly them to Dakar, Senegal for the opening Group B games for World Cup 1993 qualifying rounds. These pilots were Colonel Fenton Mohan, Lieutenant Colonel Victor Mwanga, and Lieutenant Colonel James Sashika. The plane was not designed for long flights as it was a short-haul aircraft. To make long flights, the plane had to make several refueling stops en route to its final destination. The Zambia Air Force, therefore, organized 3 refueling stops on its way to Dakar, Senegal after takeoff from Lusaka. The first stop was Brazzaville, Congo. The second was Libreville, Gabon. The third and final refueling stop was supposed to be Abidjan, Ivory Coast. The plane took off from Lusaka after a 6-hour delay. 5 hours later, the plane reached its first refueling stop in Brazzaville. The crew and flight engineers noted issues with the plane's engine after technical checks. However, determined to continue its ill-fated journey, the crew and engineers cleared the plane to continue to Libreville for the second refueling stop. At Libreville, more issues with the plane's engine were noticed. There was severe overheating in the engine, which could delay takeoff from Libreville for a couple of hours. Again, the flight crew and engineers shuddered on with a planned flight to the third refueling stop in Abidjan, Ivory Coast. Tragically, a few minutes after takeoff from Libreville, the plane's left engine caught fire because of overheating and failed during ascent. To cut out the fire, the engine had to be shut down. In fatal error, pilot Mohan switched off the right engine on mistake, making the plane lose power and lift during its climb and entered a freefall. The pirate error was attributed to fatigue and a faulty indicator light. Shutting off the only working engine, the plane fell and hit into the Atlantic Ocean about 500 meters offshore the coast of Gabon, breaking apart on impact at 22:45. All 30 people on the flight died. Zambia lost 18 of its national team players, 2 coaches, a team doctor, 3 FAS officials, 1 journalist, and 5 crew members. No national team has ever lost such a large number of players to tragedy. The Zambian team was only left with their captain, Kalusha Walia, striker, Johnson Walia, and midfielder, Charles Musanda, who are plying their trade in Europe. Aside from Musanda, the 2 unrelated Walias had made separate arrangements to travel to Dakar, Senegal, after missing the match against Mauritius a couple of days earlier. Following the crash, diplomatic relations between Zambia and Gabon soured amidst accusations that the Gabonese military had shot down the military plane, mistaking it for an invading enemy plane. Blame was shifted between the 2 countries, and neither was willing to fund the investigations for the crash. The military plane did not have a black box, the flight data recorder, and voice recorder. As a result, it is not known whether the pilots attempted to land the plane on water or stay afloat or the plane spiraled out of control and plunged into the water. The final moments of the flight were never recorded. The Gabonese Crash Investigation Preliminary Report that was publicly released in November 2023 revealed that the engine failure and pirate error were the main causes of the crash. However, families of the deceased demanded answers from the Zambian government as to why a faulty plane with dysfunctional engines and wiring was cleared to fly the players in the first place. To this day, the Zambian government has not given definitive reason why the Zambia Air Force took risks with a clearly unworthy plane, which was in no state to fly the long distance to Dakar, Senegal. A hastily assembled national team would quickly return to action on the 4th of July, 1993, beating Morocco 2-1 in the World Cup game at an emotional Independence Stadium in the capital Lusaka, where the previous team had been buried. The rescheduled game against Senegal would eventually be played on the 7th of August, 1993 in Dakar, Senegal, with the game ending with a 0-0 scoreline. Zambia would then win the reverse game 4-0 at Independence Stadium on the 26th of September 1993. Zambia would agonizingly miss out on World Cup qualification after suffering a narrow 1-0 defeat in the final game against Morocco. Zambia missed out by a single point, back when a win would only give a team 2 points. Would the team have qualified but for the crash? Who knows? To this date, Zambia has never qualified for the World Cup. Poetic justice was given to those who perished off the coast of Gabon when a new generation of a national team under the tutelage and presidency of their former captain Kalusha Walia won the Africa Cup of Nations trophy in Libreville, Gabon in 2012, not too far from the coast where the team perished. Tell us your thoughts on the tragedy. Thank you for watching.